My dudes, what's going on? Aaron back with another video for you guys. This is part one of a new series called 20 in 20 or less. First up is my favorite 20 classic rock albums from my collection behind me. What you will see in this video are 20 of my favorite classic rock records with a little bit of criteria, only one record per artist, and no offshoots of genres. It's got to be straight up classic rock. So hopefully you agree with some of these, and hopefully we have a good time. So let's get started now with number 20. All right, coming in at number 20 is self-titled album by The Animals. I actually found a close to near mint copy of this featuring House of the Rising Sun at a local flea market, and I paid very little for it, and it's definitely one that I spend pretty frequently. If you are fans of The Office, you will notice that this guy looks just like Robert California. But yeah, you got tracks like House of the Rising Sun, I'm in Love Again, Fats Domino's song, Send You Back to Walker, Memphis, Tennessee, Madigan. It's great, just old classic rock with a little bit of blues rock influence, and a very early press. And I gotta say, I was very happy to find this. Number 19, Big Star, #1 record. Just recently picked up this reissue. I'm probably going to get the most recent 2020 reissue. I heard they were analog based presses, whereas these ones I'm not so sure. One of my all-time favorite songs is the Ballad of El Goodo. You got In the Street, which ended up being used as the theme song to that 70s show. But from start to finish, this is just a great one to throw on. All right, number 18. Out of all the good Aerosmith albums from the 70s blues rock stuff, the one that I end up spending the most actually is Permanent Vacation. It is 1987. It features a little bit of rock, a little bit of blues, and a lot of the arena rock that they end up being known for around this period and on. Ragdoll, Dude Looks Like a Lady. But my favorite song, and one of my all-time favorite songs, Hangman's Jury, song #1 on the second side, Hangman's Jury. If you don't know that song, go and check it out. It is a really sick track. But yeah, this is a nice, clean promo copy. It says Compliments of Image Records. It was a really nice copy to come by. I listen to this one all the time, so needed to make the list. Number 17. I will say that originally I put Hemispheres in this spot, but as I was pulling the records, I changed my mind. The one I actually listened to the most, the one I've known the longest, and the one that probably has the most imagery and creativity behind it, even though it's hard to say which one that is because they're all amazing and creative in their own right. The space opera of 2112. This is one of my favorite go-to pulls. If you're not familiar with 2112, it is a masterclass in prog rock and a nice big thumbs up, a nice big middle finger to the record label who wanted hits instead of an amazing solid album from beginning to end without the need for any of that. So if you're not a fan or don't know it, 2112 is my favorite Rush album. Hemispheres being a close second. Pretty much for the same reason. They didn't need a hit on that one. It is just so technically sound and just perfect all around. But I will move on now to number 16. We're busting through these real quick because I got to get under 20 minutes. I have a nice clean VG Plus player's copy of Destroyer by Kiss. Kiss not being one of my favorite all-time rock bands, but this album is basically enough for me as greatest hits. It's got Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder, Beth, Shout It Out Loud. I mean, you might as well call this one of their greatest hits albums, and I love the artwork. All right, number 15. Originally, when I made the first list, this was a lot higher on the list, but as I reevaluated and re-listened, number 15, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. This is the best sounding copy in existence. This is the Analog Productions 200 gram Yeah, I chose the stereo version. After many listens and a lot of research, this was before spending the $30-40 that these cost. This is where I ended up going and getting this one, and I have to say, it was up higher on my list because it sounds so amazing. It is one of the best rock albums of all time, I will say and admit to that. But as far as my personal taste, my personal listens, it doesn't get as much listens as other Beach Boys albums, even like Holland, which didn't make the list. But I really like the story behind the album Holland more than the actual music. But I listen to it more than Pet Sounds. But this is one of the best sounding records that I own, so I had to include it because I do listen to it quite a bit. Of course, you got Wouldn't It Be Nice, God Only Knows. Those are the two biggest songs in their career on the same album, plus a lot of other good tracks in between. So I fully recommend the 200-gram stereo Analog Productions pressing of this. So number 14, this is an original, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, second pressing UK version, Disraeli Gears by Cream. This is how you can tell, I believe, is this box right here. Stereo 594003. Picked this one up for only $20 at a record show several years ago. Cleans up to near mint. It's one of my top 5 favorite album covers, which may be a 20 on 20 later on. So spoiler on that. But not only that, but Clapton, Ginger Baker. I'm a huge mark for Eric Clapton. He'll show up later on. Ginger Baker, if you haven't seen the documentary on him, I think it's still on Netflix. I'm not so sure, but his recent passing was a terrible loss for the music world. But Disraeli Gears, this copy in particular, I'm very proud to own. Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love, of course. Then the B-side kind of gets weird, kind of yeah, it just gets kind of weird. If you don't know it, you should definitely listen to it from beginning to end, and you'll see that the second half is a little bit different than the first half. But if I'm in the right headspace, there's nothing better than this record right here. Number 13, Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare. I have an original press of this, but this is the recent Start Your Ear Off Right Rhino campaign, purple vinyl. Only Women Bleed, Welcome to My Nightmare. But for some reason, the hype sticker only lists those 2 songs as featuring. So I don't know if it's a hit or not, but my favorite Alice Cooper song of all time is The Black Widow. And Vincent Price makes an appearance. Horror legend, Vincent Price. Cold Ethel is another great track. This record is freaking awesome. I have a few Alice Coopers that kind of bounce around back and forth between favorites, but I always end up going back to this one, so I had to pick it over Hey Stupid or Trash or Last Temptation or whatever. So Welcome to My Nightmare. Let's go right along. When I was a junior in high school, I switched schools, and my favorite teacher was a first-year teacher who took me under his wing and introduced me to hard rock, which is still, I'll make a metal video later. I don't consider this next band to be metal per se. I consider them to be in the hard rock arena. We have Paranoid by Black Sabbath. This is just a modern reissue. I think it's on purple vinyl, recently redone. I can't remember if it was Vinyl Me Please or Newberry Comics or one of those. I think I prefer the first album over this one, but I don't own that one anymore. I'm trying to find an original press where I only had a reissue before. But this is the one that was I had on CD in my car on the long drive to school. And I would get with my teacher at lunch and we would play guitar. He actually had a record player. We would listen to records at lunch. He's the one who got me into record collecting, by the way. I would go to thrift stores after school and whatever. And I actually, as an adult, have been to his house in the last couple of years. And while my kids play with his kids, we get down in the basement and we jam guitars, and he plays drums and he plays guitar, and we have a heck of a time. So great to have a relationship still. But he introduced me to many artists that I still love today, but Black Sabbath, Paranoid was definitely the album that I clung to the most. War Pigs, Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots. It's basically a greatest hits who's who, perfect album from beginning to end. So if you don't know it, you should know it, but I'm sure you know it if you're here. All right, number 11, we're almost ready to crack the top 10. Eric Clapton was actually my first guru musical influence in my own personal playing as I was growing up, early teen into my teen years. He's mostly a blues player, so I had to really try to limit myself of what I wanted to pick, being that this was the rock, straight up rock. So I kind of went in the middle of the road with Slow Hand. It's probably his most well-known album. It is more rock than blues. It is more pop rock than it is blues. Cocaine, Wonderful Tonight, Lay Down Sally, Mean Old Frisco, Peaches and Diesel. It's just another classic. I'm sure a lot of people's favorites. It's not my actual favorite Clapton record. That is a blues record, which will show up in the different videos some other time. But as far as Clapton's more pop or rock-based music, this is the one that I went with. But I have an extensive Clapton collection, and he's been my man since I was probably 14, I would say. So I was happy to go with this one, and this is just a 2012, I think, 50th anniversary reissue, single LP pressing, nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Moving into the top 10. Moving into the top 10, this is, I've owned several versions of this record, and I'll say this is the only one that I've kept for one reason or another, because mastering wise, Velvet Underground and Nico, or Velvet Underground in general, they never really had the best sound quality, production, and it's hard to find a nice clean copy, especially with the nice lo-fi quiet records that they ended up producing. There's lots of surface noise, crackle, and just, this is an 80s remastered reissue. It says Verve on it, but it was done by Polygram Records. It's the best sounding version I've ever had, so I'm keeping a hold of this one. It's near mint. Very happy to have it. Just picked it up recently. I'm happy to actually have this record back in my collection because, like I said, I've had a couple different copies, and it's just so hard to find one that's listenable. Sunday Morning, Waiting for the Man, Run, 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 Heroin. There She Goes Again. I mean, this another perfect from beginning to end. In the right mood, this record could end up going on repeat for the whole evening if I'm in the right headspace. So it may be the last Velvet Underground record on the countdown because I did limit everything to one. But number 9 is the lead singer from the original Velvet Underground. We got Transformer by Lou Reed. My most recent favorite album, I would say. I spin this one and listen to it in the car and things like that on Spotify more than any other of my newer records or anything. Kind of been obsessed with this one lately. So it moved up from the bottom 20 up to into the top 10 since I came up with my list a couple weeks ago, and in the process of waiting to find time to film, it's moved up to spot number 9. Perfect record. My goodness. I can't say anything negative about this record. You just need to listen to it. Walk on the Wild Side's on this one. Satellite of Love, Wagon Wheel, I'm So Free, Vicious. Those are my favorite tracks, which is like half of them, if not more than half. But this is I believe this is a Record Store Day thing from a few years ago, and it sounds great. I'd like to have an original or an early of this now that I have became obsessed with it. But at the time, I was satisfied just having the reissue. But now I think I'd like to try to find a good old copy. Number 8, I have a MoFi pressing. This is one that you see everywhere you go. It's a $3-4 record, but I went ahead and splurged and spent $30 plus on it because it's one that I listen to all the time. You don't go wrong with Supertramp records. You can find an early pressing all the way up to a remastered reissue to one of these bad boys. But for some reason, Supertramp loved vinyl and they loved the mastering process, and none of their records sound bad. They are one of the best bands to own on vinyl. All of their stuff, for some reason, just sounded so good. Breakfast in America, Logical Song, Goodbye Stranger, Take the Long Way Home. It's another who's who, greatest hits kind of deal, but from beginning to end. And the artwork. I mean, this would show up in another one of my all-time favorite artwork things. Violent Femmes, self-titled debut album. Blister in the Sun, Kiss Off, Gone Daddy Gone. Gone Daddy Gone was in my late teens, early 20s, was like my ringtone, and it was like my favorite song for a long period of time. And my band's played Blister in the Sun a bunch, but I think every band has played Blister in the Sun a bunch. Happy to have a Slash pressing on Slash Records. Number 7, I'm going to have to censor the cover a little bit. Blind Faith, another Eric Clapton project featuring Ginger Baker again. Without getting into the cover, but this is actually the most recent reissue of it, and I've had originals. I've had the reissue with the orange or the yellowish cover, the American cover, and I've had a modern reissue. But this most recent, Abbey Road Studios, 45 RPM, remastered from the original, blah blah blah. This is the one to own if you're a fan. Back when I was really into Clapton in my teen years, Can't Find My Way Home and Presence of the Lord were two of my favorite go-to songs to listen to. And moving on, number 6. All right, number 6 is a band that I got into, an 80s band, but I didn't get into them until the 2010s. A UK band called the Jesus and Mary Chain. They are probably the most famous of all the shoegaze, fuzz rock bands. This album is called Darklands. Came out in 1987. This is an original Canadian press, near mint condition. Perfect record from beginning to end. If you're in any kind of moody mood, this is a great one to throw on. Darklands, Happy When It Rains is my favorite song by them, hands down. We're moving into sacred record territory. We're into the top 4, it looks like. Yeah, we're into the top 4. Definitely going to keep this one under 20 minutes. Number 4, another one of my musical inspirations and an artist that I collected everything by for the longest time anyways. Elvis Costello. This is this year's model. Another flawless rock record from beginning to end. This is the Mo-Fi pressing. It doesn't have the tracks listed on it, but everybody knows this record and why it's so high up on my list. It's a great sounding pressing, but overall, it's for the longest time was probably one of the albums I listened to the most. So, number 4, this year's model. Top 3. This is where it got like super hard. As an adult, Queen has become one of my most listened to bands. My favorite Queen record, it's hard to really pinpoint, but I went with News of the World. This came from the box set. I believe this one's like green vinyl or whatever. Yeah. We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, Sheer Heart Attack, Spread Your Wings, Get Down, Make Love, Who Needs You. Another perfect record you could just throw on. I mean, we're talking my top 20 here, and now we're into my top 5. Not going to be able to say anything bad, and I'm just going to be no. Only thing you can really say at this point, because I'm not great at describing things, is perfect record from beginning to end. So I went with that. All right, my top 2. This you might as well say is a tie, because one record's been my favorite for longer. The other record is what I always tell people is my all-time favorite, but in reality, I'm going to split it up. My top number 1 and my number 2 are Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell and Sgt. Pepper. When I was in high school, this was in 1998, we did a Beatles marching band show. And that's where I really fell in love with the Beatles, because we did a Sgt. Pepper show. I really fell in love with the music. and the band centered around this album and then branched off into everything else. As far as Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell goes, I was raised on this album. My mom listened to Meatloaf growing up. I became a huge fan when Bat 2 was popular. I remember sitting and listening to the radio and calling the radio station, getting ready to hit record on the tape deck if they played my request so I could, record to tape, whatever. Just have such fond memories of that and this album in particular. And this album, I would say, has seen more road miles than any other album, even though it's only at 7 songs. So that's going to polish it off. These are my 2 favorite rock albums ever. And I have no qualms or no embarrassment whatsoever to put Meat at the top of that pile. Killer artwork on both of them, really. Again, these would have to be runners for the favorite album artwork, but I'd love to hear some of yours down in the comments. I'm hoping that y'all are enjoying the 20 and 20 or less format. I know I will be, especially when it comes to the editing process, but I want to thank everybody. After my last video that I did, which was the 2020 vinyl tag video, I've gained anywhere between 15 and 20 new subscribers in a very short period of time. So that was the reason why I'm back to making new videos and was excited about my channel again, because it had been quite a while since I had had time or energy or effort put into creating any content, even though I continue to collect and watch videos and things like that. You guys really help bring me back to life for the community. And I hope you like this. I'm sorry I'm not better at describing why I like something, but I'd love to hear your constructive criticisms, or as Michael Scott from The Office would say, your constructive compliments about my list. Leave some comments with your list. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends for all I care. I always end my videos with a toast, which I am going to do now, and say, everybody have a great night and enjoy the music.